Ferran Adrià has been described as an artist, a scientist, an inventor, a stage director, a designer, a philosopher, and an anarchist. From his kitchen on the Catalan coast of Spain overlooking the Mediterranean, Chef Adrià has redefined cuisine. Parmesan marshmallows, popcorn clouds, liquid chicken, honey foam, chocolate coral, all fanciful creations that have emanated from El Bulli restaurant, but also inventions that have changed the aspirations of chefs around the world. Like Picasso, Dali, Da Vinci, who ignited paradigm shifts in the history of art, Ferran Adrià has altered culinary history and forever changed the way people view food. It is to be savored delectably as an experience of emotion, an experience of memory, an experience of art. And he has shown that, against your mother's advice, food is to be played with. We are honored to welcome Ferran Adrià in person tonight. After his talk, we invite you to join us for a reception one floor down, where you'll be able to preview the Innovation in the Art of Food exhibit with Chef Adrià. You will also be able to watch Museum President Yannis Mialis and Peter Wong demonstrate 3 of Ferran's cooking techniques, and you'll be able to taste El Bulli-inspired foods prepared by Wolfgang Puck Catering. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the helm to the President and Director of the Museum of Science, Yannis Mialis.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and I'll be brief because I know you are all eager to hear from the great chef. And I too would like to thank Jack and Susie Reno for sponsoring tonight's symposium, and of course my good friends Mal and Barbara Sherman, and David and Marion Ellis for the support of the adult programs at the museum. And the symposium and the exhibition in Aster's Gallery would not be possible, of course, without the support of the Government of Catalonia, the Institute Ramon Llull, and Estela Dam, the Beer of Barcelona. And with us tonight are Andrew Davis, Delegate of the Government of Catalonia to the United States, Ignasi Genoves, Director General, General Directorate for Citizen Services and Publicity, Presidential Department, Government of Catalonia, and Julio Núñez Montesinos, Consul General of Spain in Boston. And I'm very, very excited to host my friend, Chef Ferran Adrià, to the Museum of Science tonight. We are the very first museum in the US and one of the first in the world to present this great exhibition, Innovation in the Art of Food, and we are very fortunate that Ferran is with us tonight. His presence here is certainly one of the high points of our new initiative, the New Food Initiative. And our dream is to make the Museum of Science to be the place you would go, the place in the world to learn about food, not only the science and art of food, but also environmental impacts of food growing, famine issues, obesity issues, everything that has to do around food. We want to be the preeminent institution that you would come and learn about food here at the museum. Many of you know that I'm a foodie, and you know I'm a big fan of Ferran. Ferran is one of my top 1, 2, 3 heroes in the world. And in 2010, I tried to get in his restaurant. And many of you know that his restaurant, about 2.2 million and a half people try to get in the restaurant every year. And he only accepted 18,000. So you had to go through this application process. You had to apply a year in advance, send your request, and so I did. I had to go, the only day I had available to go was July 9th, 2010. So July 9th, 2009, I sent my application in. And of course, it got rejected within 24 hours, we're full. So I had done a lot of work in the science of cooking when I was at Tufts University. I was a professor then dean of the School of Engineering, and actually we had our first science of cooking course there. And gourmet engineering was the name of the course that I used to teach. So Bon Appetit, some magazines, the Boston Globe, had done articles about the course in my science of cooking. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to send him the articles. So put everything in an envelope, send the articles there. I figured, what do we have to lose? And 2 weeks later, got an email, we found the solution. So July 9th, and the solution was found for the day and time I could go. It was an incredible experience. Of course, the biggest thrill is after opening the gate, and I was the first in the gate when the gate opened to get to the guests to come to the restaurant. The first thing you do is you're greeted by the maitre d', and then you meet the chef. So the chef was there. I met Ferran, and he gives a brief tour of his kitchen, and then you sit at the table. It was just a dream experience. It's not a dream from any sense. The vision and the taste and the sounds, it was just incredible. I got to know Ferran during the process of us trying to bring the exhibit here and make it fit Boston and fit the Museum of Science. And he's just a wonderful guy. Ferran started the Alithia Foundation, which is probably the preeminent institution in the world that does R&D about food and trains chefs from all over the world on esoteric aspects of food. And I took 2 classes at the Alithia Foundation that were spectacular. So Peter and I actually took one of the classes together, and today we're going to show you how difficult it is to make that food. So don't expect to see anything spectacular, but nonetheless, if you hang around, you'll see what we could do after taking the classes. So we're going to be doing some cool stuff. We're going to make some foam for you, and foam you can eat. And we're going to make some cool stuff with liquid nitrogen and show you how the spherification process, which is one of the signature techniques that Ferran developed, works. And now it's an honor and a pleasure to introduce to you my good friend, Chef Ferran Adrià.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Buenas noches. Bona nit.
Good evening. Good evening again in Catalan.
Abans de tot, moltes gràcies a tots per estar aquí.
Before everything, I want to thank you, all of you, to be here tonight.
I sobretot a la ciutat de Boston, tot el carinyo que tenen i tenen al bulli, perquè la veritat és que fa 3 o 4 anys que vinc 2 o 3 vegades a l'any i nos estimen molt. No?
And then I want to thank the city of Boston as well for all the affection that they have towards us and towards El Bulli. And I have to say that I've been coming here for 3 or 4 years, and I can see all the affection.
Per què estem aquí?
Why are we here?
Perquè a final de 2010, a final de 2011, a principi de 2011.
At the end of 2010, well, let's say at the beginning of 2011, at the beginning of 2011,
l'equip del Palau Robert, amb l'Ignasi i la Carme,
the team of Palau Robert with Ignasi and Karma,
em van proposar fer una exposició sobre el bulli.
So they proposed to do an exhibition about El Bulli.
Bueno, en principi semblava normal, podia semblar normal.
At the beginning, it could seem like something a normal thing.
Però clar, no vam donar compte que era la primera exposició sobre la història sobre un restaurant.
So then I realized all of a sudden that it was the first exhibition about a restaurant in history.
I tenia que ser una exposició molt divulgativa.
And it had to be like a very educational exhibition.
Perquè jo, que soc de Barcelona,
because myself, that I come from Barcelona,
milions de persones de Barcelona no coneixien molt bé la nostra feina.
So millions of people from my city, from Barcelona, didn't know that well what I was doing, about my job.
No. Molt de vosaltres.
Perhaps many of you, among yourselves,
coneixeu el bulli.
You know about El Bulli.
D'oïda, no?
Just hearing.
Alguna vegada de sopar.
Perhaps one of you had been there for dinner.
Algú ha comprat llibres.
Some of you have bought our books.
Però és molt difícil entendre el bulli.
So, but it's very difficult to know about El Bulli.
No? A baix a l'exposició veureu un catàleg del bulli.
So in the exhibition that you're going to see downstairs, which is a catalog of El Bulli.
Que té 14.000 pàgines.
So the catalog itself contains 1,400 pages. 14,000, sorry, 14,000 pages.
Claro, demanar a gent que estudi 14.000 pàgines lo trobo una miqueta fort.
So to ask people to study 14,000 pages, it's a little too much, perhaps.
Però clar, si volgués comprendre què fem al bulli seria això, no?
But if you want to understand what we do at the Bulli, that's what it is.
Després vam fer un catàleg audiovisual
So then we create an audio catalog,
que dura 14 hores.
which lasts 14 hours, more or less.
Bueno, aquesta la podem demanar, no?
Perhaps that we can ask you to do.
Però sense dubte una exposició era una eina molt interessant, no? per ensenyar a la gent, no?
But there is no doubt that an exhibition was the perfect, a very interesting tool to teach people.
El backstage, no? El per què, no? I el com feien les coses.
So what we wanted to do is to put the spotlight on the backstage and why we did things, the way that we did them.
Això s'ha anat transformant a poc, no?
And then little by little that idea got transformed and evolved.
Hem après molt
We learned a lot.
de com es pot mostrar el món de la cuina.
So how to show, how to portray the world of cuisine.
Fa 7 anys em van convidar a Documenta,
7 years ago, I was invited to go to Documenta,
que segurament és el certamen més important del món, de l'art,
which perhaps is the most important art exhibition in the world or art reunion gathering.
i va ser molt polèmic,
It was very polemic
perquè en veritat no va fer res allà.
because I, didn't do anything there.
Perquè vaig contextualitzar que una cosa és el menjar, una cosa és el que tu menges, l'obra, i altra cosa és el que expliques, no? I com es fa.
So because I put into context that one thing is the food, the work, and the other thing is how you explain how it's made.
Si tu vols experimentar, vols tenir l'experiència de menjar, tens que anar, de moment, a un restaurant.
So if you want to eat, to have the experience of eating, you do have to go to a restaurant.
Podríem fer, si vols, performance o coses molt especials al voltant del menjar, però el lògic és a un restaurant.
So obviously we can go around that subject, but obviously the logical place is a restaurant.
Però per entendre què és el menjar d'avantguarda i que s'entendre una exhibició és fantàstic.
So to understand what's the avant-garde cuisine, I think that the best medium is an exhibition.
La gent pot, segurament, el primer que direu, sí, però és que, hòstia, podria tastar, no?, el menjar, no?
But I am sure that the first thing that's in your mind, or that you'll say, but yes, but I could taste the food.
Sí, i quan vas a un museu de béisbol podries jugar també, no?
But obviously then you would say when you go to a baseball museum, you could bet.
No, quan vas a un museu de béisbol no te poses a jugar un camp de futbol, de béisbol, saps?
So obviously when you go to a baseball museum, you don't play in a field.
Però sobretot ha obert un camí a preguntar-nos com tindria que ser, no, tot això, no?
So obviously but the thing that it has done is to open a path to ask ourselves questions about how all of this is done.
Estem en una ciutat molt valenta,
We're in a very courageous city,
on hi ha institucions que han canviat el món,
where there are institutions that have changed the world.
i aquí en aquest museu doncs, podrien canviar tota aquesta percepció,
Then in this museum you would be able to change all this perception.
no? I sobretot posar-se el challenge de fer el museu més important del món sobre cuina i alimentació, que no existeix.
So perhaps to raise the challenge, to raise the bar, and to get into getting the best museum around the world about food and eating, which doesn't exist
El
anywhere
món
else.
no existeix.
In the world, I can tell you that doesn't exist.
No. Bueno, a vegades, com no teniu temps per llegir les 14.000 pàgines,
So then, since I realized that you don't have time enough to read the 14,000 pages,
i 14 hores per veure un audiovisual,
nor 14 hours to see the videos,
l'anem a veure en 5 minuts.
so you're going to see that in 5 minutes.
lo que ha passat durant 50 anys al Bulli.
So that's what has happened in the last 50 years at El Bulli.
I hem posat aquest vídeo per contextualitzar algo que m'he preguntat, no? Bueno, i ara què passa amb el Bulli, no?
So obviously we show you this video to put in context, the question, what's happening now with El Bulli?
I el que passa en el Bulli és que el Bulli s'ha transformat en el Bulli com a negoci, com a restaurant s'ha transformat en una fundació.
So what happens with El Bulli is that Bulli has, as a business, has transformed into a foundation.
Això és molt estrany, perquè els restaurants o s'obren o se tanquen.
So that's a very strange situation, as you can see, because restaurants, they get open and then they get closed.
I això ja l'ha fet molt estrany, no, d'explicar.
So that's a very weird thing to explain.
Ha sigut tres anys de treballar, encara estem treballant.
So it's been 3 years working on that, and we're still working.
I ara els projectes que tenim són aquests.
So now the projects that we have are these here.
El Bulli 1846.
So El Bulli 1846,
el Bulli DNA
Bulli DNA,
i Bullipèdia.
and Bullipedia.
De Bullipèdia no anem a parlar res.
So about Bullipedia, we're not going to talk at all.
És un projecte que estem fent amb Telefònica.
So that's a project that we are doing with the Spanish company Telefónica.
És fascinant
It's a fascinating project.
i és una reflexió sobre tot el món d'internet, el món de la informació i el món del coneixement.
So it's a reflection on the world of internet, in the world of computer science, and in the world of internet.
I el Bulli 1846 no és l'any que van néixer jo.
So El Bulli 1846, I can assure you that that's not the year that I was born.
Sinó és l'any, són la quantitat de plats que vam fer.
So that's the amount of dishes that we serve at El Bulli.
I abans, anem res?
Okay.
Anem res.
Okay, the next one.
I això és el nou Bulli.
So that's the new Bulli.
Això és el Bulli 1846.
So that's El Bulli 1846.
La part blanca, que veu a l'esquerra,
The white part that you see on your left-hand side.
vale? A sota és l'antic Bulli.
So it's the old El Bulli.
I fem un projecte que té quasi 7.000 metres quadrats visitables.
So it's a project that it has almost like 7,000 square meters that you'll be able to visit,
Interior i exterior.
inside and outside, indoors and outdoors.
I el Bulli DNA, que és un equip creatiu,
So the Bulli DNA, it's a creative team,
que estarà junt amb aquest espai.
so that it's together in this space.
És un espai cultural i sobre la innovació molt estrany.
So it's a cultural space and about innovation that's very strange in a way.
L'hem anat allò construint, lo estem construint.
We've been building it, we're still building it.
Amb l'MIT hem estat uns dies, portem un temps treballant
So we've been working with MIT for a while now.
i preguntant-nos com ho veiem, un espai cultural d'innovació.
So we talk
Que te
about
preguntis què és la creativitat, què és la innovació.
a cultural space where you talk about what's creativity, what's innovation.
És un projecte fascinant
So it's a fascinating project, can I assure you?
i sobretot el que hem vist és que és un projecte únic al món, no n'hi ha referències.
Another thing that we've seen is that the unique project around the world, it's one project that we don't have any other references.
Això és el nou Bulli,
So that's the new El Bulli.
no és un restaurant, això és clar.
So let's be clear, it's not a restaurant.
Un mes a l'any n'hi haurà sopars
1 month a year we'll serve dinner,
i farem 50% social, gratis per la gent,
and it'll be 50% social, free for people,
i 50% per endowment. Per endowment, 50% per endowment.
and 50% by endowment.
Però bueno, tenia que estar 3 hores per parlar d'això, no toca avui.
So I would have to, I could spend easily 3 days talking about that, but that's not the moment.
Esperem obrir 2013
So we hope to open for dinner in 2016.
Diner no, que diner. Obrir.
Or to open the foundation.
Pep, que
Yeah.
understand English.
Yeah.
Llavors, vull dir, el que és més fascinant d'aquest projecte és el repte, no?, de fer tot això.
So the part that I find more fascinating about these projects is the challenge.
Per fer una idea, me sembla que el que anem a veure baix té 400 metres.
So to have an idea, the exhibit that you're going to see downstairs has 400 square meters.
Això és 17 vegades.
So that's 17 times the size.
Bueno, això no té res a veure amb el tema de la ciència, no?
So that, doesn't have anything to do with the subject of science.
Però volia explicar perquè així, ara quan ens veiem a l'hora de l'exposició, tothom sabreu el què.
So I wanted to just tell you the story, so then when we see each other at the exhibit, you'll know a little bit.
Anem a parlar de ciència i cuina.
So let's talk about food and cuisine, science and cuisine.
N'hi ha una gran equivocació.
Una gran?
Equivocació.
There is like people are, have wrong ideas when.
Confonem, no, lo que ha passat aquests anys en relació del diàleg de la ciència i la cuina.
So we confuse a little bit what has happened during these years about the dialogue between science and cuisine.
I té una lògica, perquè és que tenim dificultat per entendre què és la cuina.
So it makes sense because we start having difficulty understanding what's cuisine.
I tenim dificultats segurament per entendre què és la ciència.
And then I gather that we have difficulties as well understanding what's science.
Perquè, per exemple, si anem a internet i posem cook in English.
Like for instance, if we go to internet and in a search engine we enter the word cook.
To prepare by the use of head, no? Claro, significa que un sashimi no es cuina.
So that tells us that, by the definition, that sashimi is not cuisine.
Sí, és un bomber. La persona que està en el bar de sushi és bomber.
So then we gather that the person that makes a sushi plate belongs to a fire department.
Serà un cuiner, no?
It has to be a cook, isn't it?
I quan tu menges una amanida
And when you eat a salad,
i no n'hi ha foc, és cuina, no?
so there is no heat, but that's cuisine, isn't it?
Ara podríem estar molt temps parlant sobre què és la cuina.
So we could talk and talk and talk about what is cuisine, what
Però
it is cuisine.
una cosa és el que volem que sigui, o el que pensem, i otra cosa és el que és.
That one thing is that what we believe that it is and what we want cuisine to be, and another thing is what it really is.
Si li apliquem un mètode científic,
And then if we apply a scientific method,
analitzem què és la cuina,
and we analyze what cuisine is,
sortiria això que anem a veure.
so now we'll see what it's here, what we're going to see.
Vull dir... És una mica complicat,
As you can see, it's a little complex.
Això és el que ens ha sortit a nosaltres.
That's what we got,
No? Per lo que, si la cocina és així, és això de complicat, figura't a la ciència.
So if cuisine is that complex, then forget about science.
Aquest és el treball més important que està fent el Bulli Foundation.
So that's the most important piece of work that the Bulli Foundation is undertaking now.
Això és el que està, la Bullipèdia està basada en això.
So Bullipedia is based on that.
I és entendre què és cuina.
So it is to understand what cuisine is,
Per fer una taxonomia
to create a taxonomy,
que tingui una lògica quan parlem de cuina.
so that it has some logic when we talk about cuisine.
Estamos hablando con unas personas aquí sobre Wikipedia.
So we're talking, with people here about Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
Mhm.
Es una herramienta maravillosa.
So it's a marvelous tool.
Esto es indiscutible.
So there's no question about that.
Pero no es la maravillosa que nos gustaría que fuera,
But it's not as good as we wanted that to be,
porque no tiene taxonomía.
because it doesn't understand taxonomy.
Si vas a la cocina, la taxonomía que tiene no existe.
So the taxonomy that's in cuisine, that doesn't exist for,
Vale.
for Wikipedia.
Pero esto sería lo que sería cocina.
So that's what it's cuisine, isn't it?
Ahora vamos, ¿y qué es la ciencia?
So now let's ask ourselves what's science?
Yo lo he leído varias veces esta definición, que es la definición que hay en todos los sitios,
So that's, I would say, the definition that it's everywhere,
y es complejo, ¿no?
and it's very complex.
¿No? Es el Systematic Knowledge de Physical Material World, tal. Ya, ¿y esto qué es esto?
So
¿Qué
it's number 2, and what's that?
Sí, yo sé que tú l'has vist mil vegades, no?
So I'm sure that you've seen this definition thousands of times.
Va, llavors anem a contextualitzar, aquí n'hi ha molt expertos que segurament no l'explicarien molt més fàcil.
So let's put that into context, because here among yourselves
Pero
there are
ahora
lots of experts that can give us
Yo
an easier.
voy a mi mundo, que es el que entiendo un poquito,
So, but I'm going to go back to my world, which is the one that I
y
understand a
sobre
little
todo contextualizando en lo que veíamos antes que era la cocina, ¿no?
bit. So then putting into context what, what we were talking before, which was the world of cuisine. food.
Para hacer la decodificación de la cocina,
When we decodify cuisine,
lo que hicimos es figurarte una caja fuerte
so what we did is we got a safe,
y ir buscando hasta, ¿no?, decodificar, ¿no?
so then work with, the combination until we got it right.
Y tuvimos varias crisis.
And doing that, we went through several crises.
Y una muy grande fue entender qué era la tecnología.
So one of the biggest crises that we had is to understand what is technology.
Porque todo el mundo entendemos que esto es la tecnología.
So because all of us know that that's technology.
Sí, todo el mundo.
Yes, everybody, isn't it?
No. Esto no es tecnología.
That's not technology.
Esto es tool. Herramientas.
So that's a tool.
Esto es una herramienta. Que se ha hecho con tecnología y que funciona gracias a la tecnología, sí.
That it has been created with technology and that it works because of technology, yes.
Bueno, entonces, lo que tuvimos que contextualizar fue tool, techniques,
So then we had to put into context was tools, techniques,
tecnología
technology,
y ciencia.
and science.
Fíjate, en las escuelas de cocina del mundo,
In the culinary schools around the world,
en las universidades de gastronomía del mundo,
and universities, the gastronomy universities around the world,
¿cómo explicas esto?
how do you explain this?
¿Qué diferencia hay entre tecnología y técnica?
What's the difference between technology and technique?
Siempre vamos a mi mundo, a la cocina.
So then we all go back to we'll go back to my world, which is cuisine, as you know.
Bueno, ¿y qué diferencia entre ciencia y tecnología? ¿Qué función hace?
What's the difference between science and technology? What are their functions?
Es complejo, ¿eh?
That's very complex.
Es muy complejo, a la vez muy sencillo, pero es complejo. Entonces,
It's very complex at the same time, very easy, but very complex.
como no tenemos tiempo,
So since we don't have time,
nos vamos a concentrar en la ciencia.
so we're going to concentrate on science.
Así que ya vendremos otra vez
So we'll come back another time,
y haremos, porque
and we'll talk about the
para
others.
hablar de técnicas y tecnología.
I'll promise that we'll be here back to talk about the techniques and technology.
Porque the tool es very simple. Es
Because tools are very simple, they are
No,
just
son-
that, tools.
Ya. Vale, entonces, ¿para qué sirve la ciencia en cocina?
So what's the purpose of science in
No.
the world of cuisine?
¿Y qué función tiene y cómo funciona? ¿No?
And what's the function, how it works?
Sobre todo a nosotros en la cocina nos ha servido para, y lo veo en muchas disciplinas, para comprender lo que pasa.
So then in the world of cuisine, we use many disciplines to see what's happening.
Y además para ordenar.
And then especially to create order.
Si
To order things.
aplicamos el método científico, ordenamos.
So if we apply a scientific method, we order things.
¿Esto qué es? Un tomate, ¿no?
What's that? The tomato, isn't it?
Si lo utilizamos en el mundo culinario,
If we use it in the world of food,
¿qué es?
what's that?
Es un vegetal, ¿no? Es un vegetal,
It's a vegetable, isn't it?
¿no? Si lo aplicamos en el mundo científico,
If we apply now the scientific, if we said scientifically, what's that?
es un fruto,
So it's a fruit.
¿no? Si lo aplicamos en el mundo culinario, es una fruta.
So in the culinary world, that's a fruit.
Si lo aplicamos en el mundo científico, es un fruto.
In the science world, it's a fruit.
Ahí, falla algo.
So there is something that it's wrong, isn't it, about that?
¿No? Es decir, en el mundo científico es claro,
So in the scientific world, it's very clear.
es una parte de la planta.
So it's a part of a plant. It belongs to a plant.
En el mundo culinario es simplemente una costumbre.
So in the culinary world, it's just a habit.
Un aguacate
An avocado, for instance.
en América Latina, en Perú,
In Latin America, in Peru, for instance,
está en el lado del plátano, de la fresa, es una fruta.
so it appears next to the plantains, to the strawberries. It's a fruit.
En el supermercado.
In the supermarket, we're talking.
Y en Europa está al lado de la patata y de las zanahorias, es un vegetal.
And in Europe, for instance, it appears next to potatoes and carrots. So then it's a vegetable.
Bueno, entonces esto me serviría, si hago una clasificación científica, es indiscutible.
So that would help me if I do a scientific classification. There's no question about that.
El mundo científico me explicaría la composición del tomate.
So the scientific world would tell me the composition of a tomato.
Y según la composición del tomate, podría actuar de una manera u otra.
And according to its composition, it would act or it would behave one way or another.
El mundo científico me dirá las cientos de variedades de naranja que existen.
And in the scientific world, it tells me the hundreds of varieties of oranges that are there.
Y que vienen de una familia que son cítricos,
That they come from the citric family,
que hay 3.000 variedades.
and there are 3,000 varieties of them.
Solo saber de cítricos harían falta vidas y vidas y vidas.
So to learn about the citric fruits, you would need several lives.
Pero ¿y cómo empezó todo esto?
So how did all of that started?
Que hubo solo un primer cítrico.
So it was just one citric fruit at the beginning,
Y de esto salieron todos.
and then from there it had many descendants.
Los científicos me lo explicarán.
So you scientists, you'll be able to tell me that.
Y los historiadores y antropólogos,
And historians and anthropologists as well.
¿no?, me dirán que el tomate es originario de Perú,
So the anthropologists and historians will tell me that the tomato comes from Peru. It
que es,
started in Peru.
es muy pequeñito, el original,
That the original was very, very tiny, very
es
small.
malísimo.
That it tasted terrible.
Y que durante la historia ha ido evolucionando
And during history has evolved
para mejorar.
to improve.
Por lo que esto, si reflexionamos, veremos que la tradición es mentira,
So then if we reflect on that, we'll see that tradition is wrong. It's a lie.
¿no? Que la tradición que antes siempre era mejor,
That one tradition says that before it was better, always better.
es mentira.
So it's, in this case, it's a lie.
Hace 7.000 8.000 años todo era peor,
So many years ago, everything was worse.
o casi todo.
Almost everything.
Estoy siendo provocativo,
I'm trying to be a provocateur here as
¿vale?
well.
Podemos hablar un tema cada tema de estos. ¿Eh?
We're going to talk about all these subjects.
La ciencia también nos diría qué diferencia hay entre un lenguado y una lenguada.
So science would tell us what's the difference between a male soul and a female soul.
Pues son diferentes, ¿no?
Or are they different?
Pues ¿no? O cuando vais a un restaurante, ¿qué pedís, lenguado o lenguada?
So when you go to a restaurant, you order a male or a female soul.
¿No? Tiene que ser diferente, ¿no? Digo yo.
They have to be different, I guess.
Entonces la ciencia, sobre todo, es para esto.
So science is for that.
Si yo entiendo esto, voy a cocinar de otra manera.
So if I understand all of that, I'm going to cook in a different manner.
Y solo si entiendo esto, puedo crear de otra manera.
And especially if I understand all of that, I'm going to create in a different manner.
Cuando conceptualizamos la esferificación,
When we put into, when we conceptualize spherification
en el año 2003,
in 2003,
es decir, lo que entendimos, dialogamos con la ciencia
so what we did, we started a dialogue with science,
y nos permitió evolucionar
and that allowed us to evolve
gracias al conocimiento.
thanks to that knowledge.
Y esto nos permitió hacer cosas que eran impensables.
So, and that allowed us to do things that were unthinkable at the time.
Esto es agua.
This is water.
Esto lo decía Bruce Lee.
That
Bruce Lee.
That Bruce Lee was saying that.
Pero claro, ¿cuántas veces hemos hecho esto, no? Miles de veces.
How many times we've done that? Millions of times.
¿No? Ahora vamos a hacer un mix entre lo que es la cocina como emoción, como experiencia y el mundo científico.
So now we're going to do a mix between what's cuisine, what's food, and the scientific world
¿No?
as a notion.
¿Qué pasa si nos concentramos?
What happens if we concentrate?
Vamos a mirar el agua
Let's look at the water,
y vamos a reflexionar cuántos productos hay en la naturaleza transparentes.
and then let's start thinking about how many products are in nature that are transparent.
Hay muy pocos, ¿eh?
A few, very few, isn't it?
En la naturaleza. Es decir,
I'm talking about
que
nature.
el hombre no transforme, no cocine.
That man doesn't transform or that doesn't cook.
Vamos a olerlo.
Let's smell it.
En principio no tiene olor.
The beginning it doesn't have, in principle, it doesn't have any smell.
Esto no hay tantos productos que no tengan olor, ¿no?
There are not that many products out there that don't have any smell.
¿No? Comestibles.
That edible products.
Veremos que tiene una textura, una temperatura.
But we'll see right away that it has a temperature.
En este caso está tibia.
In this case, it's lukewarm.
Y podemos reflexionar que el cuerpo humano acepta menos 20 grados más 60 grados.
So, and then we can reflect that the human body takes, from minus 20 to 60.
Es decir, un helado, un consomé caliente.
So from an ice cream to a hot consommé.
Veremos que tiene textura acuosa.
That we'll see that it has like a watery texture.
Y podemos analizar que hay miles de millones de texturas. Miles de millones.
And we'll see that there are thousands of hundreds of textures like that.
Sí, solamente un espárrago cortado de diferentes maneras y con diferentes técnicas de cocción sería infinita la cantidad de texturas que habría.
So for instance, if you cut an asparagus as an example and you cut it and you cook it in many different ways, the textures that you get out there are endless.
Veríamos que no tiene matices al paladar, no es ácida, no es picante.
So we see that it doesn't have any touches to the palate, like it's not as acidic, it's not spicy.
No tiene ningún gusto básico, no es
Doesn't have
dulce,
any-
salado, ácido, amarga.
So it doesn't have one of the basic tastes. It's not sour, salty, bitter.
Hombre, ya no están para sonreír tanto, ¿no?
So it's nothing to laugh at.
Porque nunca le damos tanta importancia.
Because we never spend any time thinking about that.
Sí, le podemos dar importancia, la importancia que tiene en la humanidad, tal, pero a la hora de, como producto, nos parece, bueno, el agua.
Yeah, that we can think about its role in the history of human beings, but as a product, we never think about it twice, which is it's water.
A nivel científico nos podrían explicar muchas cosas.
In a scientific, level, you could explain many things about water,
La composición,
its composition,
bueno, el origen,
its origins,
¿no? Los tipos de agua que hay.
the different types of water that are out there.
Y como cocinero, pues te podemos decir, bueno, lo importante es el agua, ¿no?
So as a cook, I can tell you, say how important is water.
¿Qué pasaría si no tuviéramos agua para cocinar?
What would happen if we didn't dispose or didn't have any water to cook?
¿No? Ni agua, ni o sea, ¿no? Y hace 8.000 años,
8,000 years ago,
aparte de agua, ¿los humanos bebían algo más?
besides water, human beings were drinking something else.
Pues claro, no había ni vino ni cerveza, ¿eh?
Obviously, I can tell you that there was no wine nor beer.
Ya. Y solo bebíamos agua, que durante 3 millones de años solo hemos bebido agua.
So, is that true that only that during 3,000 million years we just drank water?
Bueno, pues la ciencia nos tiene que dar esta respuesta, ¿no?
So science has to provide these answers.
Y este es el diálogo que se estableció
So that's the dialogue that we establish.
y que está siendo muy enriquecedor.
So it's very enriching.
Pero no confundamos que la ciencia, ¿no? Bueno, la cocina es ciencia.
So let's not confuse the fact that is cuisine science?
Sí, todo es ciencia, no la cocina, todo.
Yes, everything is science, not only cuisine, everything.
¿No ha visto la definición?
Have you seen the definition of science?
todo.
So everything is.
Y la pintura es ciencia.
So painting is science as well.
Vamos a leer otra vez, si queremos, podemos leer otra vez la definición y lo pones previamente.
So then we can see again all together the definition.
Cualquier ¿no? disciplina que hagáis vosotros es ciencia.
So all the disciplines that you do here among yourselves, you know, all of these are science.
Vale. Y esto es lo que hemos hecho desde hace, pues desde el año 2000. Por primera vez, los cocineros empezamos a preguntarnos todo esto.
So that's what we've been doing since 2000. Cooks, we started asking ourselves these kind of questions.
Bueno, y ahora vamos a trasladar esto a la cocina. Vamos a ver 4 cositas con agua.
So let's bring this into the world of cuisine. We'll do 4 things with water.
En el año 2010 nos preguntamos si el agua costara $1000 el litro, ¿qué pasaría, no?
So in 2010 we asked ourselves if water was costing $1,000 a liter, what would happen?
Y hicimos platos donde el agua era el ingrediente principal.
So we made some dishes where water was the main ingredient.
Vamos, ¿no es? Una de las que hicimos fue hacer un mimetismo con lo que es un terrón de azúcar.
So what we did, the first one we did is a mimetism with an imitation of what a sugar cube is.
Cogemos agua.
So water.
Le añadimos azúcar y limón.
We added sugar and lemon.
Lo pusimos a congelar.
We froze it.
Y con una herramienta que se llama pacollet.
And with a tool that's named.
Es una herramienta, no es ciencia ni tecnología, es una herramienta.
So it's a tool, isn't it? It's not science or.
Hicimos esta textura.
We create this texture.
Y cuando hacemos esto, mañana me parece que vais a ver bastante esta textura en la calle.
So I think that tomorrow you're going to see that very much in the streets as well. This texture in the streets.
Que podéis crear, ¿no? Estos terrones.
You can create these cubes.
Pero sobre todo que lo interesante era que el agua era el ingrediente principal. En este caso con un poquito de azúcar, un poquito de limón.
So the main thing was that the water was the principal, the main ingredient here.
Le ponemos aceite de té para recordar
so
un poco el té con limón.
A little tea oil to play a little bit with the lemon theme.
Otra receta que hicimos fue hacer albóndigas.
Another recipe that we create is to make meatballs
de agua
with water, made with water.
Entonces hicimos, y al final, primero hicimos para acompañarlo un sorbete de Bloody Mary.
So what we did to accompany that was a Bloody Mary sorbet.
Vosotros cuando veis el nitrógeno líquido estáis pensando en la ciencia.
So when you see liquid nitrogen, I'm sure that all of you are thinking about science.
Sin embargo, cuando veis agua hervir, no.
So, however, when you see boiling water, you don't think about science.
Veis nitrógeno líquido y todos, oh.
See liquid nitrogen and all of you go like in.
Veis hervir agua y no.
And when you see boiling water.
El nitrógeno líquido es simplemente un producto.
So liquid nitrogen is simply a product.
Simplemente.
Just that.
Bueno, pues entonces aquí cogíamos el hielo, como habéis visto.
So we took the ice, as you've seen.
Triturábamos y hacíamos esta albóndiga.
And we'd make this meatball.
Sí, muchos de vosotros pueden decir, pero esto es muy complicado, ¿eh?
But all of you can say that's very complicated.
¿No? En este caso hacíamos una con miel.
In this case, we made one with out of honey.
¿No? Como decía, podéis decir, esto es muy complicado. Cuando llego a casa sí que como cocina sencilla.
¿Cómo?
Cuando llego a casa como cocina sencilla.
When I go home, what I want is like to eat simple.
No tonterías de estas que hace el bulli.
Nothing like, not stupid thing like the one that they made at el bulli.
Sí. Yo cojo pan con mantequilla y salmón ahumado. Y estos cocinan, no las tonterías que hacen estos.
So when I go home, I get some bread and some butter, spread it with some butter, and then some smoked salmon, and that's food, not the crazy things that they make at el bulli.
Además es muy sencillo. Hombre.
That's very simple, isn't it?
Sí, hombre, sí, súper sencillo.
You say, yes, of course, it's simple.
No, súper sencillo. No te hacen ni el pan, ni la mantequilla, ni el salmón ahumado. Claro,
Of course,
sí,
it's
sencillo.
of course, it's very easy. You don't make neither nor the bread, the butter, nor the smoked salmon. Of course, it's simple.
Claro, es muy sencillo.
So obviously, yeah, that's
Claro,
very
si
simple.
yo voy a vuestra casa esta noche y hago esta almóndiga, también es muy sencilla, ¿eh?
So if I go home tonight and I make this meatball, that's very simple as well.
¿Recordáis el mapa este, no? Que os he enseñado antes.
Remember the map that I showed you before?
Esto lo explica.
That explains.
Por lo que está todo el concepto que tenéis, que es cocinar, está manipulado.
Because all the ideas that you have in your head about what's cooking, it's manipulated.
¿No es verdad?
It's not true.
Lo que es sencillo y es complejo no es real.
So the difference between simple and complex, it's not real, it's not real.
Una cosa es cocinar y otra cosa no es comer.
So one thing is to cook and the other one is to eat.
¿No? Y entonces, bueno, entonces vamos con el siguiente.
Let's go to the next one.
En este caso era hacer, ¿sabéis una textura crujiente como el caramelo candy?
So can you think about a crispy texture like a candy caramel?
Entonces, lo queríamos hacer sin azúcar, ¿no?
So we wanted to do it without sugar.
Y en este caso fue muy sencillo, muy sencillo.
So in this case it was very simple.
Es coger agua,
So it's to put some water somewhere,
y ponerla en un molde,
to put in a mold.
hacer estas pequeñas como piedras, como si fueran diamantes,
So these little stones that resemble diamonds,
¿vale? Y lo congelamos.
and we froze it.
E incorporamos una textura que no existe en la cocina
And then you incorporate a texture that doesn't exist
Pero nunca
in cuisine.
y que muchos de vosotros lo habéis probado, que es cuando tomáis una Coca-Cola o un whisky, que
So-
es el hielo, ¿no? Que queda un poquito de hielo, que el crack.
So all of you have had that experience when you drink some Coke or whiskey, for instance, and you have the ice cracking in your mouth.
Es una textura que no hay otra textura, ¿no? Que puede existir sin azúcar.
So it's a texture that can exist without the use of sugar.
Y llevando esto al límite, entre comillas,
Uh-huh. So to go that to an extreme, so to speak.
quisimos hacer láminas de caramelo que no fueran caramelo.
So wanted to do some caramel sheets that they were not made with
Entonces
caramel.
hicimos unas láminas de agua,
So we made them out of water.
¿no? Este wasabi, ¿veis? Esto es hielo,
Wasabi and ice here,
es agua helada, muy
frozen water.
Después veréis cómo se hace.
So then you're going to see how it's made.
Bueno, y cogíamos el wasabi
Wasabi,
y soja.
soy sauce.
Este era muy poético.
That was one of the
¿veis?
our most poetic moments.
Y comías agua.
So you would drink, you would eat water.
Si costara $1000, dirías, oh.
And if that came with a tag of $1,000, you would say, oh.
Pero para mí era mucho más emocionante
But for me, it was much more
porque era una textura
exciting
única.
because it was a unique texture.
Y llevándolo a la poesía, si queréis,
Following the thread of poetry,
hicimos un estanque.
what we did is like a pond.
Entonces, en este caso, cogemos, veis aquí, esta lámina muy fina.
So that very thin sheet.
Se lleva té y azúcar.
So it contains some sugar and some tea, as you can
Rompes.
see.
¿Recordáis, no? Como he dicho, cómo se hacía el hielo, se hace así.
So remember how ice was made? It was like that.
Y entonces esto era un estanque.
So that was representing a pond.
Bueno, pues esto, hay una parte creativa, ¿no? Y experiencial y emotiva y emocional en todo lo que habéis visto.
So there's a creative part, experimental and emotional in all the things that you've seen.
Os podría estar una hora hablando de emociones, de tal, sí, podría.
I could spend an hour talking to you about emotions and so on.
Hoy hay una parte también científica de todo esto.
But there is a scientific part behind all of that as well, all of this.
Hay aquí expertos en este mundo
So there are experts
del
here
agua tal que nos explicarían por qué se congela el agua,
that they would explain why water freezes.
¿no? ¿Sí? Claro, y si entiendo todo esto,
So if I understand all of this,
¿no? Entendería, por ejemplo, el por qué no se congela el alcohol.
so then I would understand why alcohol never freezes, for instance.
No se congela el alcohol si no es con nitrógeno líquido.
So alcohol never gets frozen unless you use liquid nitrogen.
Hasta hace 7, 8 años nunca habíais tomado un cóctel transformado en un sorbete.
So until 7 or 8 years ago, you would never have had a cocktail been transformed into a sorbet.
Si ya mucho alcohol no congela.
Because if it contains lots of alcohol, it doesn't freeze.
Y la ciencia sirve para esto.
And science serves for that purpose.
Y esto cambia la historia de la cocina.
And that, in a way, it changes the history of cuisine.
Nos abre un camino increíble
So it opens an incredible path
que cada día, pues se va haciendo más grande.
that every day it becomes bigger.
Cuando la cocina ha dialogado con el mundo del arte, con el mundo del diseño, con el mundo de la arquitectura, con muchos mundos, es lo que hace que esto se haya convertido en otra disciplina.
So then when cuisine has dialogue with the world of design, the world of architecture, with the world of arts, that has made cuisine into a different discipline.
Porque hay que entender que la cocina es cocina.
But we have to
Hay
understand
que entender que la cocina es cocina.
that we have to understand that the bottom line is that cuisine is cuisine.
No es ni ciencia, ni arte,
Nor-
ni diseño, es cocina.
Nor no es science, nor art, nor design, it is
Porque
cuisine.
además si tuviéramos que poner orden en todo esto, tenemos que decir que la primera actividad humana fue la cocina.
So if we have to put an order to all of that, to all of this, then we have to say that the first human endeavor, the first human activity was cooking.
Somos lo que somos porque el Homo habilis cocinó y el cerebro se lo hizo más grande, ¿no?
So we are what we are because the Homo habilis ate and cooked and then his brain became what it became.
Entonces no nos tenemos que obsesionar en poner adjetivos y etiquetar al mundo de la cocina.
So what we don't have to do is to get obsessed and to put labels to the world of cuisine.
Lo importante es el diálogo que se está creando,
The important thing is the dialogue that we are creating.
la fuerza que tiene la cocina. ¿Veis la fuerza que tiene la cocina? Es uno de los fenómenos sociales más increíbles que hay en el mundo hoy en día.
And you see the strength that cuisine has because it's one of the phenomena, around the world, one of the strongest phenomena around the world.
La red social más importante del mundo no es Facebook, es la cocina.
That in Facebook, that the Facebook is not the most important net around the world. It's food.
Sí, sí.
Simple as that, yeah.
Cuando yo decía esto hace 15 años, decían, Ferran está loco.
When I was saying that 15 years ago, they would say Ferran is crazy.
Ahora lo sigue diciendo, pero por otras cosas, ¿no?
Now they keep saying that, but for other reasons.
Pero la fuerza que tiene es increíble.
But the strength that it has, it's incredible.
Hay que tratarlo de una manera normal,
We have to give it a normal treatment. That's what I would say.
porque hay que magnificar las cosas,
We don't have to magnify things either.
porque lo único que hay que magnificar es la salud, todo lo demás es relativo.
So the only thing that we have to magnify is our health. The rest is relative.
Y sobre todo, la cocina tiene un componente increíble,
But above all, cuisine has an incredible component,
que es el happiness.
which is happiness.
Una palabra que si mañana compráis el New York Times o el Boston Globe, veréis poquísimo, ¿no?, enunciada.
That if tomorrow you buy the New York Times or the Boston Globe, you'll see very few times that word in the paper.
Vivimos en una sociedad donde esta palabra casi no existe.
So
no la utilizamos.
we live in a society where that word doesn't exist. We don't use it.
Y si hacemos memoria, casi los momentos más bonitos y más felices de nuestra vida están alrededor de una mesa.
So if we remember things, I would say that the most beautiful moments of our lives, the happiest moments of our lives are around a table.
I per això té sentit l'aposta que ha fet Yanis i tot l'equip del Museu de la Ciència.
So for that, it makes sense on the bet, that Yanis and the whole team here has made.
Que vull donar les gràcies a tot l'equip, no?
And I want to thank the whole team here.
A tot l'equip del Govern de Catalunya per tota la tasca que ha fet.
At the whole team of the Catalan government for all their work.
Perquè si fa 15 anys nos deien que un dia estaríem aquí, no, a Boston, amb una exposició sobre cuina, no? Diguem, estàs boig, no?
So if 15 years ago they would have asked me if I would be in Boston talking, you know, and having an exhibit about cuisine, I would have said, you know, that you're crazy.
I jo estic segur que amb el Yanis aquest museu i Boston es convertiran en el futur en una referència mundial en tot el que hem parlat.
And that I'm sure that in the future, with Yanis at the helm, this museum is going to be a world reference for all the things that we've discussed here.
I en el meu cas, heu vist, no?, el bulli allà, tan maco que n'hi havia.
So in my case, you've seen how beautiful it was, bulli here in the image.
Pues en 2 anys i mig he estat més a Boston que allà.
Well, I have to tell you that in the last 2 years and a half, I spent more time in Boston than in el bulli.
Una miqueta és dir lo content que estic, lo agradable que estic i tot el que aprenc cada vegada que vinc, perquè la veritat és que el nivell de talent que n'hi ha en aquesta ciutat és increïble.
That it's my little way to say how happy I am here and how much I learn when I come here, and that the talent that is around this city, it's incredible.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, and thank you very much.
This was great. Thank you so much, Ferran. And before we go to the reception, I want to give a little present to Ferran.
Hostia, blanco, hostia.
So you can now visit the Innovation in the Art of Food exhibit with Ferran. And also, Peter and I will give some cooking demonstrations. Don't have expectations to see things like you saw in the video by any means. But you'll appreciate how difficult it is to make even the simplest versions of what you saw there. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you downstairs.